Canadian Business, very very lefty outlet. So, but they had an article that talked about cost of living and acknowledging that it's through the roof. So, can you leverage that to get a raise?
And the
So,
reason I was looking, the reason I was looking into this, just for a little bit of background, is because this was this was something that actually happened organically today at work. Um, Someone just mentioned the cost of living, and it sparked like this giant conversation, and I had to suppress like my organizer like union urges, because I'm like, this would be great. And it's like, no, Brad, this would be a great way to get fired if you fall through on that fucking thought. Don't do this round two of like, I'm going to try and organize a union over your company chat device, because they're going to see that and they're going to shit on you. That happens. It happened to me. So, um, it was really organic. Everybody just started talking about how the cost of living's insane, because up here it is. I'm sure you've seen viral videos on it where everybody's like, hey, so I'm leaving Canada. Is America any better? Spoiler alert, it isn't.
no,
They're
it's
fucked too. Don't go down there if you think Canada's like a capitalistic hellscape. You're just gonna move from one capitalist hellscape to another capitalist hellscape, and you won't have healthcare now.
We're
So maybe don't
fucked.
do it.
like
Exactly.
Misty says.
Thank you, Robo Missy. Um, so everybody just started talking about like how expensive everything is, and then um, someone cleverly injected into the conversation how some companies are doing cost of living raises. Okay, it was this guy. It was me. I injected it at the opportunity. It was like a rogue sneak attack. I was like planting this right here, and yep, it hit. And then everybody else was like, wow, that's a really great idea. And so the point is, everybody was talking about like the cost of living, and how like wages need to increase. And it's like, yeah, you know what, like people need to bring home more, or prices need to lower, because like something's gonna break. And that prompted me to kind of look it up. It's like, okay, well, I'm wondering what like the consensus is on like actually mentioning the cost of living, because it's like, okay, well, is that kind of like an okay thing to actually discuss with your employer? Because if everything gets more expensive, then you're essentially taking a pay cut. You're not technically taking a pay cut, but you're taking a pay cut insofar as the the money that they're paying you um, is going to go to less. So
Mhm.
I looked into this article, and this article from a business website was everything I expected it to be, really. Um, Dog shit take, and I'll after we go through the article, I'll provide a little context as to why it's a dog shit take. But it was
so
exactly what I expected.
So at least she's acknowledging that the cost of everything is skyrocketing, and at the same time, wages are staying stagnant, and Canadians are increasingly finding it difficult to make ends meet. Ottawa-based think tank, the Canadian Center for Policy Alternatives. You think that's a lefty or a right-wing organization? What do you think?
Um, we don't have any. We're like the states. First off, we don't have any left wing anything up here. We just have different. We have like varying degrees of right. Um,
Right. So
like
this is like neolib somehow, but what they're saying is they calculated how much workers would need to make in a 40-hour work week in order to spend no more than 30% of their income on housing and what they call rental wage. Unsurprisingly,
mhm.
rental wages are much higher than the hourly minimum wage in every province. In British Columbia, you need to be making at least 27.54 an hour, but the minimum wage is 15.65. In Ontario, you need to be making 25.96 an hour. Interesting that Ontario is less than BC. That's not what I would have thought. But of course, the scale on the minimum wage is also a little bit lower at 15.50. Okay.
Yeah. Um, to be fair though, BC is objectively a better place to live. We BC actually does have some like temperate rainforests. It's gorgeous. It's got mountains. It's coastal. It's objectively a better place. It's kind of like our California. Also, there are some better opportunities there insofar as like you can do a lot of like film gigs, or Ontario's is cheaper too, though, because like it's huge as a province. But B, there's a lot of it that, how do I describe this? There's a lot of it that just isn't inhabited really. If I go 4 hours in any direction, you're fighting bears and wolves, and there's no roads, and like, it's a joke up here where we basically like we civilized like 5% of the country and just said fuck it for the rest of the 95%.
And it's all on the U.S. border on top of it.
Well, yeah, because yeah.
But the unaffordability being top of mind for everyone, and that phrase has always bothered me for 15 plus years in this business world since I started working at a big corporation. Top of mind, like
top of mind.
Like where that is such a British phrase that doesn't mean like. I get what it's trying to say, like the forefront or what. Like there has to be a better way of saying that, but you know, everybody's thinking about top of mind. Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's saying it. Financial Planning and Education body FP Canada's 2023 Financial Stress Index, right, finds money is the leading source of stress for Canadians for the 6th year in a row. Only 6? Mm-hmm. What was it before that? Healthcare, maybe? I wouldn't think so. You guys have healthcare to a point.
I before that probably. I mean, for most of my life, everybody I know, it's been that across the board.
Yeah.
It's been holy fuck. Why is rent so expensive? The big thing right now is groceries. We're just watching, like beef has gone through the roof. Holy shit.
Food prices are out of control.
Yeah, I'm looking at a steak, and this happened the other day. I'm looking at a steak that used to cost, and I'm not joking, y'all. It used to cost like maybe $9 Canadian, which is about 25 cents American. I'm kidding. Sort of. But like it used to cost like $9. It was $25.
Wow. Not one in a restaurant. That's one in a supermarket.
Yeah.
You still have to cook it yourself for $25. Wow.
Which, not to pat myself on the back, but it's probably better.
This is my favorite thing. Like, can the rising cost of living be used as a bargaining chip to negotiate a raise or other job perks? Well, according to workplace experts, it might not be the most effective argument.
Experts. It's always the experts. Experts agree that this position that definitely doesn't favor you and definitely favors the capitalists.
But instead
is actually the correct one.
But instead ask for non-salary perks like flexible hours or remote work to offset the inflation cost.
It's the pizza party shit.
Dude, I don't want to have to commute in as often because it's costing me too much to commute. So therefore, you either pay for my commute or you let me work from home. That's what they're talking about as far as the inflation and the cost. But that actually only serves the employer as well. So can you ask for a raise based on inflation? So this is, I think ChatGPT wrote this article. Seriously.
It's definitely someone who like, well, the thing I read from this whole article was like, don't get any ideas. Trolls. Like that's all I got from this. That's all I gleaned from this entire thing. Wholly depressing article.
Experts say employees shouldn't use factors outside of their work performance when negotiating wages. Mm-hmm. Right, because any wage increase would have to be commensurate with the productivity of the worker because their productivity hasn't already been off the charts. Like, dude, productivity's already been out of sight, and everybody knows that productivity on average is higher than ever, and the per capita per employee output is higher than ever. They are squeezing us left, right, and sideways. This is all a gaslight. I agree. All right.
It's not just that. The point of this that really activates my almonds is that like, yeah, I know. I know, I'm a big weirdo. So the part of this that really peanut butters my jelly, if you will, is that like okay, they're going to be like, you should argue on your productivity. This is the clapback 9 out of 10 times when you talk about like compensation's too low, I should get a raise. They'll fire back with some variation of like, well, if we raised your wage, then we're gonna have to raise everybody. I had this happen this year for me. We're gonna have to raise everybody else's wages, and it wouldn't be really be if we raise your wage, it wouldn't really be fair to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the productivity shit, that's absolutely a gaslight because like they're always gonna have another every single time I've asked for like a raise or said like the pay's dog shit, please increase it over the last 10 years, it's some variation of, well, then we'd have to raise all the wages. Uh, Sorry, this is just kind of the rate we have for the company. It wouldn't be fair to everybody else. It's all these things that have nothing to do with productivity. So even if you're arguing like, okay, well, measure my productivity to other people's fucking productivity.
Well,
Because
that
I've tried to argue that before where I'm like, okay, well, look at my stats, compare that to everybody else's stats. Because I'm sorry, there have been jobs before where I know for a fact I've worked harder than other people. And that's not an
well,
argument for
and
like I
deliver.
should
It's not
get
about
paid
working
more.
harder. It's about delivering, more effectively or more product, more actual revenue.
Yeah.
That's what this whole thing is about. And when it comes into sales, is about delivering revenue. But getting back into this for a second, but there you go.
Huh?
Ultimately, any wage increase would have to be commensurate with the productivity. Except the other thing is they just raise the bar. They'll raise your quota. They'll raise your stuff so that, well, then you're not as productive because you still didn't meet your numbers because they raised the
I've
numbers
had
on
that.
you beforehand, making it impossible for you to achieve the numbers. The number of salespeople achieving quota is lower than ever right now because they've made it to the point where the bars are just raised too high because the targets were set too high because they took on too much equity, raised too many, hired too many people at too much money, and now they've got to deliver to this, but they're only producing at this, and it's like they, it's hard. So, um, Gomez
I've had
says,
that happen to me too.
mhm, employees who
I've
are,
I
mhm, go ahead, sorry.
no, I just wanted to say I've literally had that happen before where it's like, okay, well, you're gonna have to like jump through all these hoops if you want to be considered for a wage increase. And this was after I just showed them like, hey, so this is the average of what this position should pay. I've given you all the stuff. It's right here. Um, this is what like other companies are paying. And they always have these like middlemen who are like, okay, well, I gotta pitch this to the director and I gotta like talk to him, and it's like I gotta deal with you. You can't deal with that person. I kind of gotta act in the middle, and then you gotta jump through these hoops. So yeah, I had the bar
Gatekeepers.
raised myself. Yep.
Yeah, gatekeepers. We deal with that a lot, and uh, one of the lines that I was taught very early on in sales, which is never accept no from somebody who can't say yes. So I always just went higher. Like if I didn't get the answer I was looking for, I would go up, even if it pissed off the person underneath me half the time, and half the time it would get me a deal, and it would get them like, hey, look, it just depends if you can make the case effectively. You always want to go as high as possible in who you're presenting stuff to. But I don't like the fact again that they're talking about that all-time high earnings for CEOs and increasingly large pay gap. Of course that is, right? But again, here they're saying don't ask for pay raises, but ask for non-salary stuff. Of course, while profits are already at all-time highs. Notice that they never said anything about despite all-time high earnings for CEOs and a pay gap, but nothing about productivity and nothing about profitability because businesses are at
Nope.
an all-time profitability high too, especially
Yep.
even after pandemic, with all the people out of work and not back in the office, which is something else we're going to talk about. But daycare stipends, meal plans for office workers. You know why? These are all good? Because they're write-offs for the business. They don't have to pay tax on this stuff. This is expense stuff, so they can then write down their profitability, and then they don't have to share as much profit with their co-owners and shareholders. They love washing through expenses like this. especially non-fixed, regular, ongoing expenses. All right, those things.
And these are just like psychological tools to begin with, because they're going to give you this shit, and for the average person, it's gonna create a feeling of like obligation, where you're like, okay, well, they did this thing for us, so I shouldn't really ask for more. These
Right.
are all psychological tricks.
Yep. Right. So, how to negotiate a raise? Here, coming from Canadian business, I don't know if I would necessarily listen to them, but Robert Half said that 58% of Canadian workers look for a job because of insufficient salaries in its 2023 guide. 45% of senior managers retain employees by increasing compensation. What a shock. Pay people more and they stay.
Yeah, because it's not even anything personal. Like the reason why, like, for example, the reason why I'm looking right now, I love my coworkers. I love the people I report to. I love the company. I think they have a great outlook. I want to do a lot more for them. But at the end of the day,
it's the money.
I have this much money I need to make. And if the company is not going to be able to pay that much money, I'm forced to look elsewhere. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be like, hey, all these like coworkers that I've like enjoyed working beside in this team that we're kind of all working together synergistically. I'm going to throw all that away and go start with a completely new alien everything. Nobody fucking wants to do that. You're doing that because you're like, okay, well, I've exhausted all my options and I need to go find somewhere that pays more. Nobody wants to do that, especially after you've established yourself and you're kicking ass at the job. Why would you go like risk not kicking ass at another job when you've already mastered a job and you're kicking ass? I mean, shit. Nobody wants to do that. But if it's just not making enough money for you and they're dragging their feet on not giving you more money, then
it's not just about options. And it's not just about you necessarily needing to make more money versus seeing what you're delivering for the company versus their profitability and saying, it's not really like you're sharing the wealth here with the people that are actually generating the productivity and the profits. So that's also part of it. But I
swear to God,
this gaslight, holy shit, even if you're rejected, anything can be a reminder to your manager of your hard work and might open up future opportunity within the company.
No, it won't. It fucking won't. That is just a placation where it's like, yeah, shoot your shot. And if you get turned down, just wait. Just sit there and wait. Wait. One day, someone will decide to pay you more without you like having to like jump through a million hoops for it. They'll just give you more money. That's how this works, guys. I'm gonna make a point of reminding people every single episode in the show. Your employer almost certainly is doing everything they can to pay their labor as little as possible, because we all live under an exploitative economic system. You're gonna have to fight tooth and nail to get a raise, or you're gonna just have to make the case for a promotion, because no one's just gonna out of the blue be like, hey, yeah, good news, guys, we're paying you more, unless you're lucky enough to work like in a worker co-op or something where the surplus value of your labor is actually like determined by a group of people instead of just top down.
The only other way to make increases is to keep moving around. And that's what I found too. I have a group of friends that every 2 to 3 years, they're moving and getting a new job and moving up in title and moving up in stature. And maybe they take a lateral move here or there. But overall, there's an arc where they continue to grow and rise. And you have to be willing to take that shot, unfortunately, is what I see. I personally, I probably give it too long. I've been waiting, giving it 5 years at a place. I go and I like in order to really learn it and to be fully immersed and a full sales cycle with reaping the benefits of all the renewals and everything else, I figure a 5-year stretch is good enough. But 3 people now have showed me that it really should be every 2 to 3 years based on earnings and how quickly your earnings will increase because once you're at a certain place, you basically get what you're going to get early on, and then you'll get minimal increases from there, unless it is a substantial promotion. And the only way to really get the only way to get more money like that substantially is to make that move and to be willing to walk out. And sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah. That's kind of been my journey. 2 to 3 years is usually the sweet spot, because like you don't want to get caught in that trap of like, oh yay, I got a pay raise. Oh cool, it's 50 cents more an hour or $1 more an hour. It's like, well, no, you're underpaying me to begin with, so pony the fuck up.
Right.
But you can just go do that elsewhere. And it's pretty much across the board. I mean, if you can look around, just ask yourself what you're making, and then go look on sites and look at that range. Like, just by getting the right interview and, you know, applying to the right jobs, you could be doing the same job or something a little higher that you'd be otherwise completely qualified for, and making like 10, 15, 20K more a year. One of my ex-coworkers did it, for example. She went from making like 40K a year to making 65K a year. So
that's substantial, and that's a
pretty big jump.
That was my jump too. I went from like 45 to 60. It wasn't quite that jump. I went 45 to 60 when I was in my 20s, and I took a different gig where I was more responsibility, and at the time I was working with car dealerships, and I managed 6 dealerships worth instead of 2. And that's when I got a substantially higher salary, and they gave me a demo and a whole bunch of stuff. It was really cool then. That was years and years ago. That was another life. A couple ways figuring out how to ask for how much to ask. Look up the CPI, which is currently 6.8%. But you also have to think about not just this year, but to think about a year from now or 2 years from now. Where is that salary going to look compared to the cost of living then? Because you're probably not going to get another raise between now and then. You know, and this is one of the things that I want to talk about next. After we get through all this, I have a good idea now. I came up with a thought about the UPS guys and their cost of living increase that they just got in their agreement that literally just got ratified today with Teamsters and UPS. So we can talk about that in a few minutes, but figure out how to do salary research online. Talk to your coworkers. Of course, there's Glassdoor. And if you're in sales, there's that site that we talk about called repvue.com, REPVUE, and they actually do talk about total comp. They talk about base salary. They talk about commission. They look at the percentage of people that are actually achieving quota, which is really good. They also look at stock options and the entire compensation package, which is really important to consider as well. But they're talking about, again, easing the burden, the cost of living burden. There's nothing wrong with asking your manager for benefits like meal plans, discount commuter passes, and subsidized travel, as long as you can make the case for it. No, but it's only going to offset their costs, because they're just going to be able to then reduce their profitability, which means they pay less taxes, but still cover all their expenses.
It's literally just pay us more money. Like, it's so fucking simple.
Right.
All of these, like, well, if we can get, it's like, no, just pay more money.
Well, they're finding ways to keep the profitability in the business and not maintain ongoing recurring expense, because that is what hurts businesses, is overhead cost, consistent monthly fixed overhead cost. And part of that is salaries, large part of that. So the less they have to spend on salaries, the more money they get to take home. Right.
My favorite priority, my favorite's always been, it's been when it's when you just finish having a talk with your boss on how there's no possible way they can pay you more, and then you receive some kind of braggy email from the company head bragging about the record growth and the record profits, and it's just well, y'all are doing really well here.
Yeah, something doesn't square.
Yeah.
Now here's that same guy from Robert Half when pandemic restrictions were lifted, workers were left thinking about their jobs and how to make jobs work better for them, and they started asking for all these other benefits. Employers who aren't sensitive to that will fall behind. Well, that is a nice way to say, like that's a nice sentiment to please don't ask for more money, just ask for perks. Yeah, no.
Okay, can one of the perks be you paying my fucking rent? Can you give me a house?
Right.
Can I have a house?
How about a housing stipend?
You give me a house.
Right.
Can you write off a house?
Company housing? Yeah, the problem is that then they literally they can fire you and kick you out of your house. So I don't know if I really want that either. Yeah. I would rather get a housing stipend.
Actually, yeah, that's true, because that's a little too close to neo-feudalism, which we're already flirting with way too much.
We're halfway there already. But
yeah,
but also
and we're not living on a prayer.